Hi guys, this is Dr. Gonzalez here, and I'm going to walk you through your assignment for week 3. This assignment is going to help you construct some of the parts of your final research paper, and it also gives me an opportunity to provide you with feedback on those parts before you go and put them in the actual template. So I'm going to be referencing the template for this assignment, and I might be pulling up some websites as we go along. So these instructions are in the template, and they're also, I'll put a copy of these notes in there if those are helpful for you as well. So you're going to begin by downloading the template, and the first thing you're going to see is to write out your research question for me. You're going to get very tired of writing out that research question, but it helps me. It also provides you with a focusing point, a focal point at the top of your paper so that your research question is always at the forefront of everything that you do. And I've got 60 students this summer, and you're all unique and special. So I want to make sure that I'm looking at your research question as I go through your assignment. So if you pull up that template, it's going to look like this. And you'll see that at the top of the page, there's some information about the assignment, and then it goes into the instructions. So let's walk through that. I've got to switch this back every time I click out, so I apologize. All right, in part 1, you're going to talk about sampling. So one of the topics that we covered in this week's lecture and notes were the different sampling methods and techniques that are commonly used in experimental research. So what I want you to do is go back and refresh your memory on those different techniques. And then I want you to select one, and I want you to write about it. But before you can do that, you need to describe your population. So if you remember from the notes, population is the broader pool of people that our research question applies to, and our sample is going to be pulled from that population. So what you're going to do in this particular part is you're going to tell me about your population, then you're going to select one sampling technique that would work for your proposal, and you're going to describe it in detail. You can use outside sources if you need to. The book would help. You could probably Google. If you wanted to learn more about your particular technique, Google could probably provide you with some help. And I would also say that this is a good opportunity for using ChatGPT in a constructive manner. Engage with it, ask it to tell you about your particular sampling method, and tell it to give you some examples. And from that, you can pull and design your own tailored sampling methodology for your paper. You're going to write your answer in the form of a paragraph. Paragraph means at least 5 sentences for me, guys. 2 sentences will not address this, okay? The template is formatted so that your answer should be double-spaced. And a thorough and complete answer is either going to be one really long paragraph that addresses the population and your sampling methodology, or you could break that down into smaller ones. But the bottom line is you cannot address your sampling methodology in 1, 2, or 3 sentences. This needs to be thoughtful and well written out. So let's talk about what that kind of looks like. So I came up with an example research question that fits our experimental requirements. This is a fictitious question, obviously, and also a fictitious medication. So the question here is, does the medication Somniva increase sleep quality and duration in adults with mild to moderate insomnia? So you guys know what mild to moderate insomnia is. It's difficulty with sleep, whether it be falling asleep, staying asleep, or going back to sleep after you wake up. And it also has to do with quality. So insomnia is generally related to poorer sleep quality. So I've got this fictitious medication, Somniva, and I want to see if it helps increase sleep quality and the duration in this group of adults. So it's clearly experimental because I have a manipulated independent variable. The independent variable is the sleep medication, Somniva. And an example, this study could have 3 groups. I could have a treatment group with 10 milligrams, a treatment group with 20 milligrams, and then a placebo or a control group. That control group is obviously going to serve as my comparison, and it has to receive a placebo because a good clinical trial, which is kind of what this research question is setting up, is going to be double blinded. And that means that neither the researcher nor the participants know what particular treatment group they're in. So I totally made up Somniva, but I'm going to stick with it and use it for a lot of my examples for this class and probably in the future. I'm pretending that it is a non-Z drug, which means it's not a benzodiazepine, which is habit forming. So Somniva, on the other hand, would be a non-benzodiazepine, non-habit forming medication. In the ideal world, you'd pop it under your tongue, let it melt, and you would drift off into immediate and blissful sleep. And you would wake up the next morning feeling refreshed and rested with no after effects like the hangover effect or grogginess. And I also made it even better in that it's going to be cheap and covered by everybody's insurance. It doesn't exist, but I sure wish it did. Going a little bit further, how do you describe your population? Well, get creative. In this particular situation, my population is going to be adults aged 18 to 65. I'm going to not be interested in people over the age of 65 because it gets really difficult to treat sleep issues in older age because of other comorbidities, things that are happening at the same time, medical issues that might not make this the best group of people to work with. I also need my population to have mild and moderate sleep problems, and that's going to be problems falling asleep, staying asleep, feeling unrested, waking up too early, etc. So this pretty much describes most of the adults that I know. So that's my population that I want to sample from. So let's go into what you would write for the sampling. So again, I have my research question just written again for your reference purposes up there. I've decided that I would use a purposive sampling strategy because in that particular strategy, all of my potential participants have to meet a particular set of criteria. They have to be an adult within that specific age range that I mentioned, 18 to 65. They also have to be able to give consent. I can't have other people consenting for them. They also need to have mild to moderate insomnia. And I want that insomnia to be something that has persisted for a little while. I don't want somebody who all of a sudden last Tuesday began to experience insomnia and it be something that's transient. Maybe it would resolve on its own. They're just having a bad week. So I need my population that I'm going to pull from, I need them to have experienced their insomnia symptoms for over a month. So using that purposive sampling strategy, I would post recruitment materials around my community. That would be like malls, general health clinics, the university, Walmart, whatever. I'd probably also reach out using a radio, TV, or some sort of announcement on social media, announcing the study and giving information about recruitment. So what that's going to do is by informing the population about my study, I'm going to purposefully have people elect to participate. They're driven by their need to abate their insomnia. So they're going to purposefully elect to participate in my study. All of this that I've verbally told you, I would be writing that out in my sampling portion of the assignment. More is better. I'm happy to give you feedback saying, let's whittle this down, as opposed to someone submit an assignment with 1 or 2 sentences and it be very clear that they haven't put effort into learning about the sampling techniques or how they would apply them to their study. The idea from that sampling is that potential participants are going to see those recruitment materials and they're going to reach out to inquire about participating. I'd probably have an email dedicated to this particular study, a website set up, social media sites, anything that's going to help me recruit that sample. I might even go as far as asking doctors at general health clinics to distribute recruitment materials. So maybe they have a patient that came in for a yearly checkup, they're healthy, etc., but they're experiencing insomnia and it's been going on for a while. So the doctor says, hey, are you interested in participating in this research study? So it doesn't matter how they get to us, those potential participants are purposefully sampled. I've got a set goal and a specific purpose for that research with a very specific population. Once they've reached out to me, I'm going to direct them to do a screening survey to determine eligibility. Your particular research question may not need this, or you may need even more detailed screening than what I have described here. So I'm going to use just a quick, 2 or 3 question survey, very, very quick. It can be either administered by study personnel over the phone or in person, or they could go to a website and fill out the screener, which screeners don't collect identifying information. They basically just say, hey, you're eligible, hey, you're not eligible. Some of the things that I'm going to screen for, though, are I'm going to confirm their age and their ability to consent. I want to confirm that they've got untreated sleep difficulties for at least a month. So there would be a set of questions specifically related to the symptoms of insomnia, including questions about their duration. And then I'm also want to screen out some particular situations. I want to make sure that if someone's already using a sleep medication, that they are not included in the study. There are a myriad of problems that could come up when 2 medications are used concurrently. So I want to eliminate those people. I also want to eliminate people who have a previous official diagnosis of a sleep disorder. For example, someone who's been treated for or diagnosed with shift sleep syndrome or narcolepsy probably doesn't need to be in the study. So I want to exclude them. I also want to exclude people who have history of substance use disorder or a medical condition that might make it unsafe for them to participate. Obviously, in a real study, all of this would be done in conjunction with a physician who would be helping me establish these criteria for inclusion or recruitment. So once you've written that, you're going to put that information together about the population and the sample, combine it into one paragraph, or use 2 or 3 shorter paragraphs. I would gather that this would probably be at least half a page double-spaced. If it's not that long right now, don't worry, we can beef it up. But again, I just don't want to see I'm using a purposeful sample and I'm going to recruit adults. That's insufficient. If you've got doubts about it, reach out to me. In part 2, you're going to explore some of the possible measures that you can use for collecting the data on your dependent variable. So we know that the dependent variable depends on your independent variable and it is measured. So we need a measurement tool to collect that data. Now, some of you may not be using a tool at this point in your thought process. So you might need to shift gears. You're going to need some tool to be able to measure a component that is conceptually and operationally defined as that dependent variable. In this particular research study that I'm showing you as an example, I'm looking at sleep quality and duration. So I need a measure for that. Now I'm going to show you how to use the UHCL library and APA PSYC tests to find valid and reliable measurements. But I'm also going to tell you that this is another opportunity for you to interact with ChatGPT. If you ask ChatGPT to help direct you to a reliable and valid measure, it's going to spit out a couple of things that might be worth investigating. You can then take that information back to the UHCL library because wherever the information comes from, I need to confirm that the tool or measurement actually exists, it's valid, reputable, and reliable. Okay? In other words, it's got to be real. It has to have been developed by real scientists, and it needs to have been tested out there in the real world. So luckily, I'm using something I'm already very familiar with, but you could enter your search terms into a PSYC tests. How do you get to that? You can get to that particular site by going to the library, right? Clicking on Primo, signing into your account. It's going to take you to this page. You're going to click on Clear Lake. It's going to take you to the list of databases and click on APA site tests. And what it does is it pulls up a search engine. Now, since I asked ChatGPT to suggest a tool for me that I already knew existed, I was kind of cheating there, but hey, I want to find information about the PSYC. And it gave me what I needed, but unfortunately, you would have to request this particular publication from 1989 from Interlibrary alone. However, if I click on it, it still gives me a lot of the information I need to write about that measure. Just a note, you don't have to actually provide the measure for me. You just need to write about it, okay? I was able to get what I needed from this particular publication through APA Psych tests. I can also cite this. There's a way to cite it in here. I don't remember where it is, but there's a way to cite it. But I happen to know that the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index is publicly available through the University of Pittsburgh Department of Psychiatry and their Center for Sleep and Circadian Science. So if you are doing a research question in your paper that has to do with sleep quality, you've hit the jackpot because the PSYC exists, is valid and reliable, and it's been translated into a ton of different languages and a ton of different situations. So odds are, through the database here, you can find information about what you need for your measure. There's the site right there. You needed to get the citation information. What's cool about this one, if you're doing this particular study or this particular measurement tool, is on their website here, they talk about the same thing, the validity and the reliability, how to use the PSYC, how to cite it, and they even give you links to the original article. So I don't have to go and request it through Interlibrary alone. It's actually available. So even if you're not using the PSYC, if you're using another tool that maybe was suggested by ChatGPT or Google Scholar, Google it and see. You may be able to find that that tool is publicly available, especially through the universities. That adds to the reputability of the measurement tool and its creators. I can find interesting information here about scoring, how to use it in a database, the languages it's been translated into, the instrument itself, if you want to actually go and look at it. And it even tells me how it's scored here on this page. But it's got all the information that I need to answer the questions for your assignment. So let's go back and look at that so that you'll know what's expected of you. All right, so this is basically what I just went through. I was able to go to the author's site and it provided me a lot of the stuff that I needed to answer the questions for the assignment. You need a description of the measure. So you're going to tell me, does it use subjective or objective data? Is it self-report? How many questions are there? What kind of questions are on there? Does it produce subscores? Does it produce an overall global score? All of those things that are things that I can answer with the information I have about the PSYC. You're also going to tell me about the reliability and validity of the tool. Okay. I also saw that link to the original publication, which was cool. And like I said earlier, you can download that and you can actually look at the scoring instructions and the original publication. And if it wasn't for a little detective work and the suggestion of ChatGPT, I might not have found that. So again, this is a great opportunity for you to constructively and appropriately use AI to help you complete your assignment without overstepping the line, so to speak. So moral of the story, use whatever you can. Start with ChatGPT, start with UHCL, APA psych test, start with Google Scholar, whatever you start with, and wherever you go, make sure your info is reliable and valid, and it comes from a reputable site with real researchers, because ChatGPT will make stuff up. So be careful. Just check the validity, reliability, and the existence of both the measure and the researchers. So what do you need for the assignment? You need the name of the measure. You need to provide me with a detailed description of the measure. I'm not looking for an encyclopedia here, but I do want more than 1 or 2 sentences. And then again, you're going to tell me about the reliability and validity of the tool. Detail matters. And you're going to write an APA formatted reference. So this is what it looks like in the template. There's a paragraph here with your instructions. You're going to come right here and you're going to type the name of the measure. You're going to come right here and you're going to put a space, and then you're going to type the information about the measure. Then you're going to come down here and tell me about the validity and reliability. And then you're going to replace this citation with your citation. If you're using the PSYC, you're in luck because it's cited for you right there. All right. So that is part 2. Part 3, you're going to propose your hypotheses for this study, and this should be a very short and straightforward section. You're going to write a null and an alternative hypothesis, and then directly after that portion of the template, you're going to write a paragraph and explain to me your null and alternative hypothesis using words. You're going to tell me when you would reject it, when you would fail to reject it. Is it one-tailed, two-tailed, etc.? And you're going to base that information off of the notes and the video lecture. So what do I mean with that? If you scroll down in the template, here's the instructions. You're going to go right here and write your null. You're going to go right here and write your alternative. And then you're going to come underneath here and write me a nice paragraph explaining and describing your hypotheses. That brings us to the 4th and final part of the assignment, which is going to be your survey design. We've identified a measurement tool for our survey, but that tool is not going to allow me to collect all of the information I need. For example, I want to know if a person works in my study. I might want to know if they work multiple jobs. That might indicate a person who has a full-time job and a part-time job is probably going to be sleepier and more worn out than someone who only works one job. Now I'm giving them this Somniva medication. I might need to control for some variables along the way, and that might be one of those particular variables I need to know about. So I'm going to ask you to create a short demographic and descriptive data collection tool. Your survey needs to have a minimum of 10 different questions. Of those questions, you can add more, but of those questions, one needs to be open-ended, at least one, and at least one of them needs to use a Likert scale. At the end of those questions, of the part about your survey, I have asked you to write about 4 questions related to general survey design. So what does that look like? If you go into the template, you'll see here I've just listed out spaces for 10 questions. You just park your cursor right there and go to town, format it however you want. Try to make it look attractive though, because in the real world, you want your survey to look attractive. I'd probably be giving this particular survey over a period of time, like a month, while people are taking this medication. They're going to fill this survey out a couple of times. once at the beginning, once at the end. All of that depends on my survey design, which we're not addressing in this particular assignment. But you're going to come through here and fill in your questions. And then I said you had to answer 4 general assignment questions. Those are questions about your fictitious survey that you're writing here. So describe how you would address response fatigue in the administration of multiple surveys or instruments. If you're talking about a sensitive topic, what actions would you take to ensure that your participants are treated with dignity and respect? What does it mean when a question has answer selections that are both mutually exclusive and exhaustive? And then the last one, what are just some points to consider when you're creating and using those Likert scale questions in psychological research? So again, that's your template. Let's go back over here. I said you needed to have 10 questions. You could have more, but I strongly advise you to pay attention to the survey lecture, because you never include something that is, excuse me, that is not either going to be a control variable or is directly related to your research. You've already asked your participants to answer that 19 question PSYC. I don't want to saturate them with a ton of different questions. When you're done, you are going to upload your submission to week 3 assignment. That's where you would see the information that I've just gone over here. There's your template right there, and the video will be posted back in Canvas. And then you also have learning check number 3 that is also due on the 22nd. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, and I hope you are enjoying this class so far. If you've been doing your assignments and keeping up with them, you're probably approaching the midway point in the writing of your paper. So next week, we're going to kind of summarize things, and we're going to do a checkpoint on how you're coming with your paper, and we're going to transition into our statistics. Take care and reach out if you have any questions.